Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I just want to come to show you how I draft this bodice front. I want to show you as well two t-shirts that I made, and these t-shirts I cut them freehand. I didn't use a pattern. I don't normally use patterns once I'm making something for myself. This is just a simple t-shirt from a remnant piece of material. This one I just completed. It's a long sleeve t-shirt with a round neck and just a slight detail in the front here from a black stretch, and both materials are jersey materials. Alright, so first what you need to do is get your measurement. Once you have your measurement and the right amount of paper, your pencil, tape measure, your rubber, scissors, whatever you need. So once you have all that, you're ready. Alright, so this is what I just did, and if you want to see how I do this, you stay tuned. I'm going to mark this pattern on this side. But first I'm going to find the center, and it's always good to mark your center down. So I'm just going to mark my center. As you can tell, this is a pattern paper. You already have marking, but I just wanted to define that so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to mark the full length of the t-shirt that I want. Alright, just give that a straight line just to straighten that. And the full length that I want is 21.5 inches for the t-shirt. Alright, so I'm going to mark this 21.5. My seam allowance is going to be 1/2 inch. Give that another 1/2 inch added to that, and then my hem is going to be 1 inch. Alright, so once I get that, I'll make a straight line. Alright, so now we have our straight line at the top and at the bottom. The next thing I'm going to do is from this straight front line here, we're going to call that the center front. Alright, I'm going to measure down 3 inches. And I'm going to mark that. That's my 3 inches mark. Alright, so once you finish marking your 3 inches in the front, you're going to go across and mark another 3 inches. Alright, depends on how wide you want your neck. So what you're going to do next, you're going to join this 3-inch mark to this 3-inch mark. Alright, so basically that's your neckline right here. Next step, from this 3-inch mark, you're going to go over 4 inches. And then from this 4 inch, you're going down 1/2 inch. You can join that, but that's not necessary. I just wanted to do that so you can see where it is. So you have this 3 inch. Let me bring this closer. Alright, so basically you have this. Basically you have this 3 inches going down the front. You have 3 inches going across. That's from your center front to the top of your shoulder. And then from this point of your shoulder, you go across 4 inches, and then you go down 1/2 inch. So right where you have your 1/2 inch mark, you're going to join it with this 3-inch mark. Alright, and that is where you have your top of your shoulder. And from the top line, not this second one, from your top line, you're going to measure down 5 inches. And once you've got that 5 inches mark, you make a straight line across. Okay. From the top line again, you're going to measure down 8 inches and you're going to mark. And you also make a second line. So then from the top line again, so and I mark that, and then I'm going to go straight across with a line. Alright. Alright, and then at the bottom here, it depends on how much you measure your hip area around where you want the t-shirt to end. Then you mark that. Alright. Okay, so these lines, I'm gonna name them for you. This is the upper bust. This is my bust line, and this is my waistline, and this is around the hip area, so I will say hip line. So this is your bodice right here, not finished, but this is basically what you can see. All right, so the next measurement for the upper bust, for the upper bust, I'm gonna measure across and I'm gonna mark, right? And for your bust line, you get your bust measurement, and this is 1/4 of it. So whatever your bust measurement is, once you're making this front, you will have to divide it by 4 if you're cutting it like this. And whatever the 1/4 is, that's what you use to measure here, okay? Alright, and then for your waist, the same thing, 1/4 of your waist measurement. And then your hip, you do the same thing, 1/4 of your hip. Alright, so you have all these markings here. What we're going to do next, you're going to take your curve ruler, or it doesn't have to be a curve ruler, let me make that known. It doesn't have to be a curve ruler, and you also use a straight ruler. Right, I'm going to be using this because I like using this and it's more accurate. Alright, so what we're going to do next is join this marking from the second marking up here, your shoulder to your upper bust, to your bust line, to your waistline, and then to your hip line. Alright, and I'm sure you can see the bodice outline. One more thing I need to tell you, at the point here, this point tends to come out real pointed. at the end right here, it tends to come out real pointed once you join this line and the other line, the side line here, right? So what you do, you can go up at the very end here, you go up 1/4 of an inch, and you can mark that. And you can also take this ruler, make sure that you're on this line, right? And you just bring that up slightly. You can use your pencil and do that. And as you can see here, I did the same thing. Did the same thing here. This would not be the hem obviously, but this is the actual finished hem. So you still have this nice curve right here. Alright, and so to add the seam allowance, you add the seam allowance outside. The hem, you put it inside. You put the marking inside, as I said, because you're going to be turning it up. You're going to be turning it like that. Right? Alright, so what you do here, to get your seam allowance, you measure, it depends on what seam allowance you're using. I'm going to be using half an inch. So what I'll do is just mark my 1/2 inch all the way around. Alright, that's my neck, and once I do that, then I'll just mark that. So you know that's where my seam allowance is going to be. Alright, so this is the pattern. Just brought it closer so you guys can see. Alright, this is where this is the original neckline, and then this is where I mark for my seam allowance. This is where I put the straight line right across here. Then from this point I dip down 1/2 inch, join those two. That's my arm, that's my upper bust, that's the bust line, that's the waistline, and that's my hip line here. So all around you see the seam allowance, and that's what you do. And this is the original one that I did. All right, so now that we finished the front, I'm going to show you how you can cut your back. And this is just very easy. Professionals would do a lot more, but as I said, I'm not a pattern cutter, so I'll show you the way I know how. All right, so again, we're going to find the center, and the center is going to be right here. All right, and we're going to scale across just to give it that straight line. And obviously, if you're making a pattern for a customer, there's a lot more markings you can do as well. There's various markings you can do on a pattern, and once you do that line, you have to indicate what that line is for. So that would be the green line. The upper bust, the waist, and the hip. Right? For the seam, I put 1/2 inch seam allowance. So whoever is making this pattern, say I'm making it for someone, then they know it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That's the back neck. Alright, so I'm gonna measure over 4 inches. And I'm going to dip down 1/2 inch. And at that 1/2 inch, I'm going to join it to the 4 inches. Alright, so that's the same thing I did in the front. Because basically this has to be the same as the front. Alright, so the next thing, from the top line, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to measure down 5 inches. Right, and I'm going to measure down 8 inches. Alright, so the front, it was 16.5. That was my front measurement. So I'm going to go up 1 inch and make it 15.5, which is what I have here. Okay. And with that, you go straight across as well. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, and also this is the upper back, and this is what you can mark bust line as well, and this is your waistline, and that's your hip. Okay, so this is basically is a copy of this. I'm going to measure across, and my back is definitely wider than my front. So I'm going to measure that across and mark. My bust, I'm going to measure across and mark. And I'm going to measure my waist, and I'm going to mark. Measure the hip. And I'm gonna mark. Alright, this is as easy as it gets. It's from this drop line, the top shoulder. You're gonna do the same thing as we did to the front, and you're gonna join each one of these markings, and that would be your back. Alright, so that's what you do here. Alright, so see, you can see I finished marking all the markings here, and this is the back. Alright, so what you can do, you can go ahead and add your seam allowance. Yeah, and at the end here, you can do the same thing. Come up a quarter of an inch just to curve that a bit, so you don't have this point. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Alright, so this is your pattern right here. Here, this is the back, and this is the front, and this is just a basic bodice. Very easy and simple. And as I said, if you need to mark your grain line, just a straight line, just to indicate this is where this is the direction you put the fabric in on the grain lines. If you enjoyed this video, like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next time on another project.